Hi, and welcome back to my continuing series on world government UFO disclosure activities. I'm Keith, and today's installment comes to you courtesy of the fine people and government of the U.S.'s southern neighbor, Mexico. I'll start out with a few fun facts about Mexico's involvement, then take a look at the history of UFO, OVNI, UAP disclosure. Then I'll follow that up with a look at the Mexican government and their disclosure activities, and then a quick summary, a little bit of compare and contrast with that of other world governments' efforts. So at the beginning, actually, I can give you one little compare and contrast in that the Mexico government agency involvement is a little more centralized than some other countries, and another characteristic that Mexico does enlist the help of ufologists in the public sector, much like those activities that the France government undertakes and that of Chile and Brazil also. So Mexico is the seventh most populous country in the world in terms of annual sightings. Now, the population of Mexico is about 128-29 million, and that's roughly 1.7% of the world's population. So, but they are seventh in the world in annual sightings. So that kind of parallels a little bit with their raw population totals of 128 million. I believe it's somewhere at the either very bottom of the top 10 or the very top of the top 11 to 20 in terms of proportional world population. So Mexico's archives of UFO UAP reports and cases do have a heavy influence and involve video and visual sightings, compare and contrast somewhat like the dependence on Chile's effort and Brazil's also, in addition to other countries in our survey. So Mexico City as Mexico's capital city with a population of roughly almost 30 million people, that takes up almost a quarter of their entire population. So a lot of historical activity seems to have been centered around the Mexico City Valley area, and volcanoes are very popular and significant in terms of the survey of UFO, OVNI, UAP reporting phenomenon. So let me take a dive into the sightings history. Mexico does have, going back into ancient times, because many ancient civilizations existed, amongst them the Olmec, the Mayan, and the Aztecs are very significant and left an awful lot of artifacts for modern humankind to be able to gain insights and education and knowledge from. So perhaps I'll start out with perhaps the most popular, one of the most popular, at least anyways. This is considered to be, this case, Mexico's Roswell. It occurred on August the 25th of 1974 in the Coyame region, which is roughly in northern Mexico. This involved a crash and retrieval of a UAP craft and suspected bodies, meaning the pilots and the occupants aboard that particular craft. It was reported that this craft had a collision with another private airplane. Now, the collision is beyond any doubt in that the U.S. Army and Air Force have both maintained along the southern border from U.S. to Mexico, maintained a very visible, long-lasting, and prominent presence in surveillance of Mexico airspace. So the U.S. Army and Air Force have confirmed radar sightings and data that indicates that there was a collision in the Coyame region. Well, what happened was the Mexico Army responded to it, and in continual communication with U.S. Air Force, Army, and other U.S. government and defense agencies, Upon being repeatedly asked, do they need assistance, the Mexico respondents basically said no. While the U.S. continued its survey airspace over the Coyame region, discovered that a convoy of Mexican army and military trucks was stopped dead along the highway, which caused the U.S. Air Force and defense teams to respond, to move in, and to basically secure and then cordon off and retrieve any artifacts from this alleged crash. So this Coyame incident, again known as Mexico's Roswell, has been featured very prominently. In 2005, the TV show UFO Files did a complete documentary on the Coyame incident. Also, too, the very late Leonard Stringfield wrote a book, his report, a UFO Crash Retrieval Status Report number 7, and followed up by, in 2013, Ruben Uriarte and Noe Torres, the Coyame incident. That was written in 2013. So if you want more detailed information on the Coyame, Mexico's Roswell, please follow up either with the UFO Files television show, which I believe is part of the IMDb archives, Leonard Stringfield's book, or Ruben Uriarte's book in 2013. So fast forward a little bit further, another very important case. In 1976, September, I believe it was the 17th, the Ceballos incident. Now, this occurred in and around the region of Durango, again in northern central Mexico, in what is known as the Zone of Silence. Now, this has been a long-time phenomenon, meaning that some very curious environments, electromagnetic frequencies, in addition to many biological life specimens that are anomalous to the particular region, a high incidence of albino animals, extremely different and anomalous colored indigenous wildlife. And back to the EMFs, in that various readings throughout the years have indicated from our instrumentation that the polarities and the strength of electromagnetic forces in the Zone of Silence is as strong or stronger than what occurs at the North Pole and the South Pole. So if you know your electromagnetic sciences, you'll become aware that this is very anomalous to happen in a region that's, if you look at the Earth as a magnet, the region in northern Mexico is almost halfway between a North Pole and a South Pole on the magnetic scale. So very anomalous indeed. Also, too, many U.S. Missile tests and others or whatnot have had to have been scrapped while they're flying over Mexican airspace. For some reason, the electromagnetic forces just seem to be an attraction for things that are metal, and they disturb compass readings and other EMF instrumentation readings and whatnot. So in the Zone of Silence in September of 1976, Mexico military witnessed a silent 300-foot-long cigar-shaped craft that fluttered blue and green lights and had the telltale propulsion and physical characteristics anomalous to many aircraft and objects that have been made or piloted by humankind and whatnot. A little bit beyond that, after that, July 29th in 1977 in the Mérida, Yucatan region, this incident was witnessed by thousands of people, including the police in the area, the public, and a whole movie crew, filmers of a particular movie, which got on video, and the police had recorded some some other data, some radar data is also as part of the information archives. 3 lights displaying the usual typical anomalous physical characteristics: flying at high speed, hovering, coming, not quite landing on the Earth's surface, but hovering just a few feet above, stopped dead. Takeoff, acceleration at blindingly high speeds. There turned out to be a total of 7 of these from the flap from the reports that came in by the various members of the public, Mexican police, and again this movie filmmaking crew. So on July 11th, 1991, in Mexico City, we begin a series, kind of like a wave, but this has lasted for over 30 years and continues, where, and this is a very popular case, witnesses within Mexico City, untold thousands, were getting ready to view a solar eclipse when near the Popocatépetl volcano. And they witnessed lights flying in, around, into, out of, around, down, towards the ground, all through the duration of the eclipse, which lasted a few hours. So, as I mentioned, Mexico City and the volcanoes and various geological activity around seems to be very seminal in Mexico's history of UAP case files. So, in 2003, near the Temple of Quetzalcoatl in central southern Mexico, artifacts were discovered when a tunnel near and a sinkhole near the feathered serpent pyramid was discovered. A sinkhole, and then followed by investigators finding a tunnel. Now, in that tunnel, they supposedly dug out many artifacts, supposedly because it's an ongoing investigation, and then there has been a lot of cover-up, so the disclosure is not as transparent as you and I would maybe like it to be. But amongst the various reports and following documentaries that were published in regards to this particular find and discovery, were that many thousands of metallic spheres, pools of liquid mercury, and deposits of the minerals and the stones of mica, which all of these particular metallic elements, the metallic spheres, were analyzed to indicate not of compounds that are not commonly found in nature on planet Earth, at least anyway. So that means that they could have been manufactured. But amongst the discoveries of the metallic spheres, the pools of liquid mercury, and mica, mica incidentally is used amongst many spacecraft, the U.S. Space Shuttle, the space station, and whatnot. It's a very lightweight metal and has very flame and heat resistance properties to it. But again, all of these metals were not common or native to that region near Quetzalcoatl in central southern Mexico, or in Mexico for that matter. So where all of these deposits came from remains a total mystery. So March of 2004, the Mexican Air Force, during drug surveillance activities, filmed and took radar data from unidentified aerial phenomenon. In 2005, June the 24th, in the town of Jalapa, a television crew and the general public and the police, TV Azteca, videotaped sightings of 14 different OVNIs, UAPs, flying in and around the town. So I believe there is YouTube archives from TV Azteca on this particular incident in June of 2005. A little bit later on in November of that year, San Mateo, a commercial pilot witnessed 5 Omni UAPs. while flying over 35,000 feet airspace, displaying the typical classical characteristics of stopping, hovering, instant acceleration, turning 90-degree turns. All of those feats impossible for humankind to be able to, from our knowledge, be able to survive, and from our technology, not be able to duplicate, at least that we know of. So. Another very popular sighting, again in Mexico City near volcanoes in December of 2007. Many thousands of people witnessed unidentified lights coming into, flying in and out of the volcanoes, multiple volcanoes around the area. And again in January 2014, Nevado de Toluca volcano, again glowing objects flying into, out of, hovering around, flying off at high speed and whatnot. So maybe this is a good segue, my mention of the popularity of the activities around volcanoes. In talking about the main contributors from the public, general public, to the Mexico's disclosure and information effort, two contributors in particular, Jaime Maussan and Ruben Uriarte. Now, again, I mentioned before Ruben Uriarte. He is the current longtime director, Mexico, and also Cuba director of the Mutual UFO Network chapters in Mexico and in Cuba, MUFON.com. His email address I put up here for you. You can communicate with him, especially those of my listeners that reside in Mexico. If you have any kind of a case sighting to report or an incident, Ruben Uriarte will be a go-to boots-on-the-ground person, the state director in Mexico for the MUFON organization. Also, too, archives.gov. You've heard me mention this particular U.S.-based website throughout my whole series. They're very active worldwide in reporting information from case studies, and again, Mexico has a few case reports located within the archives.gov site. A main contributor to the Mexico effort has been Jaime Maussan. He's an investigative journalist, has been for well over 40 years. He's still active. You can catch him or from his history. He has produced many radio and television shows. His first radio show, UFOs and Other Mysteries, began in the early, I believe it was 1990s. Followed up by, on television, the Televisa Network. The title of his show was the Tercer Milenio Show, which means third millennium. He began that show in 2005. I believe it is still active. Then in 2010, another show from the IMDb entertainment platform, El Show de Jaime Maussan, which again began in 2010. So as you see here, I've given you the address, web address for youtube.com, his channel. And what is contained in Jaime Maussan's channel. I've seen him speak and present at more than a few conferences now. He has collected up from, especially from all over Mexico, from many decades of videos of UAPs, ovnis, UFOs from people, and some of these, a lot of these videos are hugely compelling, and they're beyond, I suppose, if you want to take entertainment value from them, but they're entertainment in the informational and the thought-provoking categories, not just the recreation type or the speculation type. These videos that Jaime Maussan has collected up at his YouTube channel really get your thoughts going in terms of trying to go to figure out what these phenomena are all about. So very important and influential, Ruben and Jaime and the archives.gov. So as I mentioned, that the Mexico government is pretty centralized in terms of their ufology studies and disclosure and whatnot, the Department of Defense has been very intricately involved, as has been the Mexican Army, Air Force, the police, and again, as I circle back, mentioned from the beginning, they maintain a policy of friendly relations and ask for assistance from the various ufologists, Jaime Maussan amongst them, on a case-by-case basis. But what this translates to is that, again, because I mentioned some very seminal cases, the Zone of Silence and Mexico's Roswell, Cayambe, and a couple of other incidences in which we're left with a big void in terms of information and analysis moving towards conclusions as to what the objects and events of those particular incidences actually entailed. So what that means is that Mexico, on the case-by-case basis, basically in terms of disclosure. Now, again, I mentioned Jaime Maussan in 2004 in March. Videos of recent events and infrared and radar data analysis were given to him for investigation. So some of his reports came up on his various TV and radio shows and on his YouTube channel. So one other disclosure incident, a case that came up in 2015, March the 8th, it was announced by the Mexican government that a whole archive treasure of documents from the ancient Mayan culture, dated over 1,300 years ago, produced a film which was titled Revelations of the Mayans. So that film documentary will indicate to you some of what they found in terms of Mayan codices and information that relates to possible existence of ET intelligences back at that time. This report also, the report and parts of other documentation are also available on John Greenewald's website, The Black Vault. So theblackvault.com is where you'll want to go for updates on not only Mexico, but John has maintained and added to a worldwide effort in terms of disclosure efforts by various governments and whatnot. So with that, in summary, it appears that Mexico again has a pretty rich history. Their disclosure efforts, I think partly this to make the statement that their disclosure efforts may make us long for a little bit more in terms of transparency and whatnot, but I believe the relationships, some of them covert and secret, that Mexico has with the U.S. In terms of investigations, maybe boots on the ground, especially some older cases and whatnot, the geographical proximity also being a factor, and the proclamations by Mexico and other governments, especially currently, that this UFO phenomenon is now interesting and worth further study due to national security reasons. That excuse was not given in the early days of the modern age of ufology, aka back in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s. It was all trying to be excused away back in those times as it's nothing to worry about, so to speak, just to take your attentions and move them elsewhere. Well, current generation now, that status has changed to where now pretty much general agreement worldwide by all the governments that this phenomenon is a matter of national security concern, and Mexico's close relationship with the U.S. in terms of defense and other related matters, I think, is an important factor in their maybe wanting for more transparency of ufology information and disclosure data and whatnot. With that, I will sign off for now. Please continue. I thank you for continuing to educate on my series ongoing of world government UFO disclosure. Please look at my other videos, and again, for information and website address information, I encourage you, go to my Facebook, the Humaniverse page, and my other personal Facebook page in terms of obtaining websites and being able to directly tapping in to more information from those countries. Thanks again for viewing. We'll see you next time. Take care.